is Backward here. I'd like to give everybody an overview of our current deployment, talk about some opportunities and vulnerabilities I've noticed in our current deployment and how we can go about fixing those. I want to give everybody an overview of their units facing, what weapons you have, give you some line of sight checks if that's helpful. One important thing before I move on, infantry commanders. None of your units have acquired their Javelin ATGMs. I think Gray somehow fucked up unit acquiring weapons when they were in their tracks still. So we have no long-range infantry capability, and I'll go into that in more detail when I do the unit click-through. Once I've done that, then I'll go and take a look at what the Russians are doing, give you a look at their units, talk about what I think they're likely to do next turn, and give commanders tasks for how we can stop that. So first off, you can see key commanders. There's my battalion headquarters track right there, right here. Hobbs, 1st Battalion HQ, Ace Buckeye, D Company HQ. So first off, some critical vulnerabilities I see in our current defensive scheme. The Russians, as we see from the UAV, are making a pretty concerted push, moving right up the west, headed towards us. They're using two primary roads to do this. As you can see right here, Red Sox Road, Yankees Road. They're moving vehicles at high speed down these roads. From the number of sound contacts, I'd say each road has at least anywhere from a platoon, 2 platoons, to a full company of BMPs moving down it. Not to mention the vehicles that we can see trying to move through these woods right here. These are absolutely critical lines, MSRs we have to control. And right now we do not have good responses to this. We do not have any line of sight towards this VP right here and Red Sox Road coming out of it. None whatsoever. There's no vehicles here that can stop it, and this vehicle track right here from 1st Platoon C Company does not have line of sight to prevent it. It's blocked by trees. This position here it could see things, but from this position here it can't. So we do not have a good response to Red Sox Road. A similar issue here with Yankees Road. We do not have any units keyholing this position right here. That means the Russians can move Russian units down en masse. They have exclusive freedom of movement down Yankees Road right now. They can't stop that. So C Company needs to have an effective response to lock down Yankees Road and Red Sox Road. I think we see a similar vulnerability here. Looking at this road moving into the North Road junction right here. We only have one vehicle covering it. The Battalion XO's track right here, as you can see. They can move large numbers of units down that road, and we only have one Bradley that can stop it. That's not enough. Again, I think we also have a vulnerability, as Hobb was talking about in Roll20 earlier. Hobb, I think you were right. I think there's definitely a possibility of a movement through Mingus Woods. I think we need to make sure we have units here in the Corps Cops, as well as units over here in Patton Forest prepared to respond to that. Not to mention infantry teams with ATGM launchers, although again, infantry teams, as you can see here, don't have ATGM launchers right now. So, let's go through and give each unit an overview of where they are. I'll start off with C Company. C Company headquarters right here. Hobb, you can see these are the vehicles in your headquarters element. These are the units controlled by Herp. This is the unit controlled by you. Right now, Herp, your vehicles, good line of sight. You have a good line of sight towards the center of the map, although the smoke unit here is going to stop you from seeing things much further. But you do have good line of sight forward. This Bradley here, the fire support Bradley, good lines of sight. Excellent facing looking towards the center here. Very, very good deployment. Hobb, your vehicle is going to be deploying. Let me find you. There we go. Your vehicle is going to be deploying behind a house right here, so won't be able to see much. All right, moving through and looking at the vehicles. Beg your pardon. 1st Platoon. 1st Platoon C Company. 1st Platoon C Company, this vehicle here cannot see very much. It's got very limited line of sight looking forward. Not very good positions here. I would recommend, I think this position is a much, much, much better position. There is a small hump in the terrain, but an Abrams can get hull down and stop engage enemy units coming out from Red Sox Road. This unit here, good line of sight, looking forward, I beg your pardon. Reasonably good lines of sight, although because of the hump in the terrain right here, it's not able to really engage enemy targets to its front very well. And because of the smoke here, it's going to have limitations on what it's able to see to this position over here. Also, because it's turned this direction, its flank armor is exposed to the enemy as they're moving down here. This vehicle here, I beg your pardon, it's going to have fairly limited line of sight to its front because of the hump in the terrain, but very good lines of sight to the flank over here. This vehicle here, reasonably good lines of sight forward, although they are limited by the hump in the terrain there. Really good lines of sight to the center of the map over there. Oh. All right, taking a look at the infantry units here. As you can see, none of the infantry units have acquired Javelin ATGM launchers. All of these weapons are still in the track. As you can see right here, doesn't have them. As you can see right here, doesn't have them. Still in the track. So these units need to acquire the launcher as well as the missiles. If they don't acquire the launcher and the missiles, I'll give you a demo what that looks like here. They have to acquire both of the missiles as well as the ATGM launcher. If they don't do that, they're not going to have a workable weapon. They cannot engage the enemy. They have to acquire the missiles and the launcher together. All right. The Bradleys don't have particularly good line of sight. This vehicle behind a building, not able to engage anything. This vehicle here is going to be moving up here. Its face is going to be pointed towards the woods, but its flank is pointed towards the enemy. So it's not going to be able to see the enemy. It's going to be able to get shot, and it's already thin flank armor. This is a reasonably good position to engage enemy targets in their flank, so I'd recommend facing it in this direction. This vehicle here in the Ornat Woods, looking forward, cannot really see very much because the Ornat Woods is on low ground. All right, let's look at 2nd Platoon. 2nd Platoon, C Company. This vehicle here, moving into the Ornat Woods, will not be able to see very much to its immediate front because the rise in the Ornat Woods blocks a lot of that. It'll have some line of sight here, but that line of sight is going to be limited. This vehicle here, reasonable lines of sight from this position. This is actually a reasonably good position. However, if you can see here, the unit's fate is going to be faced this way. It will not be able to see the enemy, but it's going to have its flank exposed to any enemy units coming in the center. I strongly recommend this unit gets faced this direction here. This unit here, this is a really good fighting position. I like this deployment right here. Good lines of sight forward, good lines of sight forward, good cover. Vehicle is also partially hull down because of this hedge right here. Good fighting position. I like it quite a lot. One last overview. This position here, reasonably good coverage of the center. All right. So that's C Company right there. C Company, there's some pretty substantial holes in C Company's defense. The infantry need to get javelins, and then they need to acquire AT4s, and we need to work on improving line of sight to these positions right here, as well as locking down Yankees Road and locking down Red Sox Road. All right, let's take a look at D Company right here. D Company, I beg your pardon. You can see D Company's headquarters vehicles right there. So we'll start off with company headquarters. Company headquarters for D Company. In reserve, not very good line of sight forward, which is reasonably good because it is in cover. Same thing, battalion headquarters vehicle, battalion fist vehicle, can't see much. The battalion XO's vehicle potentially has line of sight over here, though it's very, very, very wonky. All right, starting off, let's take a look at 1st Platoon, D Company. This vehicle here, line of sight is obstructed by these houses here and these trees here. So this vehicle has fairly limited line of sight looking forward. I recommend maybe moving the vehicle back a little bit. If it's in this position here, you might be able to have better line of sight here and possibly better line of sight here. So a fighting position somewhere right here, just reversing it and facing there, might give better line of sight. This vehicle right here, I think Gray made a mistake, or the Pathfinder made a mistake. The vehicle is going to be here. This is a good position to be fighting from. Great lines of sight in the center, good lines of sight over here. However, the facing of the vehicle is going to be looking this direction right here. Its flank armor will be exposed to the enemy. It won't be able to see anything. So it needs to have a facing command here at the end of its movement. This vehicle right here, this is a good fighting position, good lines of sight looking forward. I like it a lot. Although, again, the commander does need to be mindful of the possibility, I beg your pardon, the trees are fucking everything up, of an enemy unit over here, possibly flanking. All right, so those are the units here. One final note, 1st Platoon headquarters. It's fairly deep in the woods, which means its line of sight is going to be obstructed, and its tank main gun shells are probably going to hit these trees here firing out. I'd recommend maybe scooting up a little bit here so it can engage enemy units moving on the North Road Junction. All right, looking at 2nd Platoon D Company. 2nd Platoon D Company, good fighting positions here in the Corpse Copse. Great line of sight forward here, here, and here. Same thing, good line of sight here, good line of sight here, good line of sight here. Be careful, though, of enemy units trying to move through the flank this direction here. I might recommend possibly considering having just one unit back up in the woods a little bit and face over here so it can cover its partner. But good fighting positions here. I like these. All right, let's talk about the infantry. So the infantry here, as I mentioned earlier, none of these infantry units have Javelin ATGM launchers. The larger units, A-teams, have the Javelin missiles, but they do not have the launchers, which means they cannot launch anything. These units here, the units that have been split off, do not have the missiles themselves. Those launchers are still in the tracks right here. You can see they've acquired the missiles, but the launchers are still in the vehicle. So they need to acquire the Javelin launchers before they can have any long-range AT capability. Unfortunately, the only way to do that is to have the units get back in the vehicles, acquire the launcher, and then dismount again and split. So if you want to solve this problem, you're going to have to move all the infantry units to the same building, to the same floor, or to the same tile of terrain. Have the units reform so that A team and B team all become one squad again. Then you can have the units go mount in their track, acquire the weapons. Then you can split the anti-tank teams. So the anti-tank teams will take the newly acquired launcher from the tank. They'll take the missiles from the unit that had them, and they'll move them into the anti-tank team, and then they would fire. I know that sounds very complicated, but to recap very quickly, you'll have to move the units. So 3rd Squad A team, 3rd Squad B team will have to move to the same tile of terrain. They'll have to blend back, so it's only 3rd Squad. There's no teams that are split. They'll have to all get onto the Bradley. They'll have to acquire the launcher. Then they'll have to split. Then you can dismount the units again. You can split off the anti-tank team. Then the anti-tank team will have the Javelin and the launcher. I know that's complicated, but unfortunately that's the only way to solve this situation. I'll give you an overview of the line of sight for the Bradleys right here. Bradleys here. These are good firing positions looking this direction, but again, as you can see, the facings of these units, they're looking this direction right here. I'd recommend they face this direction, otherwise they're going to get hit by flank shots, and the Bradley, even with this extra ERA here, does not have very thick side armor. So I'd recommend they face this direction here, rather than be looking over here, which is apparently the way the current pathfinding got worked out. Over here, the Bradleys, my apologies, have fairly limited line of sight. This Bradley, as you can see here, is looking at a tree. It has no line of sight forward. It does, however, have pretty good line of sight to the flank over here, so I'd recommend facing the Bradley over here in this direction. Same story here. Bradley, kind of looking at a building, looking at some trees, not good line of sight forward. Much better line of sight to its flank. I'd recommend maybe backing the vehicle up so it's behind this building here, behind the cover of this tree, and then facing it that direction so it can engage enemy units coming over there. So that's the overview of all the units that we have on the map right now. Now, one thing before I move on also is we caught a really lucky windfall when Gray was picking units. Apparently, Gray gave the fire support team for C Company, so HERP, this is a unit you command, they are a crack unit. That's one of the highest experience levels that a combat mission unit can have. Why does this matter? Well, it matters because they can call in fire missions faster. You can see here, here's a regular fire support team. Veteran experience, takes 5 minutes to call in a fire mission. Same thing with Dakeen's fire support team. 5 minutes to call in a fire mission. Corcoran's unit right here, the crack unit, they can call in fire missions in 3 minutes and 4 minutes. That's really, really, really fast. which is great. So if we do have to call in a fire mission, I recommend that we use this unit as the on-map unit that's doing the firing or the spotting for it. So keeping them alive and keeping them in good positions is going to be absolutely critical. And as you can see here, they're able to call in a fire mission on an area target using the UAV mission that Takeen called in. So they're able to engage pretty much any enemy unit in this woods right here with artillery fire. So I think this is a great opportunity for us. We can have 105 shells falling in this forest here in the next 3 minutes. All right. So let's take a look at what the Russians are doing. As you can see here, the Russians have various flavors of BMP armored fighting vehicle. BMP's fairly straightforward. They've got 100 millimeter cannon that can fire anti-tank missiles as well as HE shells, and a 30 millimeter side-mounted cannon right here. And you can see this vehicle has the Arena active protection system, which can shoot down some missiles coming in from the sides, as well as things like AT-4s and RPGs. And we can see here, this one has the Blockier ERA explosive reactive armor. It'll help a little bit, but it won't help too much. Certainly not against tank shells and things like that. So they appear to be moving units down this road right here. You can see they're channeling vehicles through here. As I expected, pathfinding was hard for them through the woods, so more vehicles are pushing down these roads right here. Red Sox Road, again, with this many Russian vehicles and this many Russian infantry moving down it, we've got to lock it down. Because inside every one of these BMPs is a Russian infantry squad of 8 to 9 men, bristling with RPGs, medium machine guns, all kinds of nasty things. One other thing of particular notice is the Russians have, you can see here, T-90 tanks. These are top-of-the-line tanks for the Russians. They're reasonably well armored, they're reasonably fast, they've got reasonable guns that can fire large shells, 125 millimeter shells, or they can also fire guided anti-tank missiles. They're good at close range, but they don't have the same spotting, and they don't have the same armor that we do. So if we can engage them at long range, they can shoot us with their guns, we can tank the hit, we can fire back, and we can kill them. So we should try to engage these units at long range if possible. They're also excellent targets for our Javelin ATGM units, and they should be a priority for them. So you've got to make certain infantry commanders that we have our ATGMs up and back in action as soon as possible when their units acquire them. This right here is a small team right here mounted in a Tiger as a AGS 30mm automatic grenade launcher, a little bit like the US Mark 14 40mm grenade launcher. As far as I can tell here, there's probably a small team on board, and maybe some kind of XO team, or maybe some kind of recon team. We also see an enemy contact here in the center. This suggests to me that they're probably also moving vehicles down this road here to North Junction. Again, probably an enemy unit of a company, half a company, or a platoon strength, moving down here to try to scout and secure these buildings here and possibly the North Road Junction. Now, the fact that they're smoking very heavily here and the fact that they shot down our UAV, as you can see here, one of our UAVs has been knocked out. The fact they shot down our UAV suggests pretty strongly that they have vehicles over here, probably a Tunguska, which is one of their AAA units, that fired us, shot us down. So it's also pretty likely they have at least a company of BMPs, possibly supported by a platoon to 2 platoon of T-90s moving through here. So, what's our next course of action? I'd like to use the crack unit that we have here. One second. The crack unit that we have here, to use Takeen's UAV spotting mission that we have here, to call in artillery, hammer them with 105s in the next 3 minutes as they're putzing around in the woods. Just orient them, disrupt them, confuse them. I'd like to get units locking down Red Sox Road, firing down the length of them. For Red Sox Road here, Yankees Road here. I like to make sure we have an airtight defense. I like to make sure that all of our infantry units have the Javelin missiles and the missile launchers so they can get into the fight with those. And I want to absolutely beat the tar out of the Russians as they're coming here. In Goon games, if they lose a lot of people early, it affects their morale badly, and it also makes them much more likely to make mistakes and be nervous about fighting further. So let's beat the shit out of these guys here as they come up this road. All right, goons, let's go kill some Russians.